Welcome to episode 148 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm going to talk about the practice of letting go instead of trying harder. Visit truthforteachers.com to ask a question or to share your thoughts in the comments. This episode is sponsored by Brains On. I don't know if you've ever listened to podcasts with your students, but it's a great way to engage their minds and spark their imagination without relying on screens. The Kids History show called Forever Ago dives into the fascinating backstory of everyday things like clocks and shoes and skateboards to teach kids how to think critically about the past. Forever Ago uses games, skits, and real kids to keep students engaged while teaching some important lessons along the way. You can listen for free to the Forever Ago podcast, as well as a kids science podcast called Brains On at brainson.org or wherever you get your podcasts. So as we kick off 2019, I know a lot of people are thinking about resolutions, and maybe you love resolutions. Personally, I love the start of a new year. New Year's Eve is my favorite holiday. I love how people are sort of wistful and melancholy and reminiscing on the past, and at the same time hopeful and optimistic about a fresh start. I love it. I know other people who feel like it's sort of a fake thing, right? Like we all get this idea, new year, new you, we're going to do things completely differently in the new year, and you're very anti-resolution. I wanted to share something that has been really transformative for me over the past couple of months. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot, I've been practicing, and I have watched it change my life. And it's just a simple mindset shift that I hope will be really powerful for you, whether you have resolutions that you're making or whether you feel like you should be making resolutions, because I think we all feel like there's things we quote unquote should be doing, right? So this is really about releasing the things that aren't serving you well and thinking of that process as a letting go, rather than something that you need to try to accomplish or become. While we often have goals for things that we want to do or habits we want to create, I think there's a lot of power in the act of releasing. So when you think about the things that you feel need to be done in order to be a better teacher or a better parent or a better partner or just to be better to yourself, I want you to consider the mentality of letting go instead of trying harder or working at something. And here's what I mean by that. Think back to some of the moments that you are most proud of as a teacher. These were probably times when you were fully present as your most essential self. Those were times where you were authentically you. During those moments that you're most proud of, you were probably a little vulnerable. Maybe you took risks, but you probably immersed yourself completely in that moment and caring for your students, supporting with them, connecting with them, teaching them, whatever it was you were doing in that moment, you were really fully present there. And that is your essential self. Your essential self is unburdened by to-do lists and standards and outside expectations from other people. It's free from unhelpful stories about what is and isn't possible. It's you in your most authentic, natural state, present, loving, filled with purpose. You don't have to try to be anything that you're not. And that includes the positive ways of being that you wish you embodied, the things that you want to do. You can sort of let go of that striving and focus instead on just being your true, whole, healed, essential self, letting go of any thoughts or beliefs or actions that aren't serving the highest good. At your core, you are loving and patient and kind and compassionate. At your core, you are full of life and energy and purpose. And all the traits that are counter to that are simply baggage and coping mechanisms that you've picked up along the way in your journey through this very challenging world. You've accumulated triggers, things that now set you off so that you don't respond in the way that you wish you could. You've accumulated habits and patterns that really aren't serving you well. It's just part of the journey of being human. But those things aren't really you. At your core, you have a beautiful spirit or soul or essential self, however you choose to name it. So you don't have to constantly work hard to become a better teacher or partner or parent. You're not becoming anything. You're simply releasing all the habits and patterns, trauma, anything from the past that isn't really you, but it's just weighing you down. It's still with you. You're still reacting from it. Being yourself, your true essential self, is always enough. It's always exactly what's needed in any given moment. So instead of getting down on yourself when you don't make the choices that you wish you had, or you don't show the kind of self-discipline that you think you need to show, I want you to think about what you need to release. Think about what's holding you back from doing what you want and need to do. For example, if you find yourself yelling at a student, remember that your natural state, the real you, your essential self, is calm and patient and loving. It's not reactive. So get curious about that. What happened to pull you out of that state? Were you maybe replaying all the times in the past when that student pushed your buttons? Or maybe projecting ahead to the future and thinking about how you can't possibly keep dealing with this behavior all the way till June? Were you maybe caught off guard? Maybe you were trying to focus on something else in the moment and you just weren't prepared to handle the situation with the full presence that was needed. Release yourself from judgment. Don't judge yourself for the way that you responded. Simply notice it. Observe what happened. Notice the cause. Notice what pulled you out of your natural state and into this reactive behavior or this habit or this pattern that you don't like. Awareness is really the goal. Often the reasons why we don't follow through with what we wish we could do, be it eating healthy or exercising or being patient with other people or getting work done instead of procrastinating, the reasons that we don't follow through with those things is often because we're weighted down with a bunch of stuff that we just need to let go of. We have accumulated habits in the evenings that waste time and keep us from getting a good night's sleep. We've fallen into patterns of buying junk food and not nourishing our bodies properly. We've defaulted into taking care of everyone else's needs and never noticing what our bodies and hearts and minds are crying out for us to do. Our bodies let us know what we need if we're really listening to them. But a lot of times we're just not keyed into our senses. We're just going all the time. And so we miss the opportunities to do the things, think about the things, experience the things that really bring us joy. And when you return to those things, when you say, take a moment to breathe, or you meditate, or you stare out the window for a couple moments, or take a hot bath and just decompress, or light a candle and watch the flame flicker, or savor a meal with someone that you care about, those things allow us to return to our essential selves. These types of things feed our souls. They remind us of who we are and what really matters. And they bring us back to the present moment instead of replaying the past or rushing ahead and worrying about the future. What we need is less about doing something or becoming something and more about loving who we are and accepting ourselves as we are. We can release ourselves from these expectations and from these habits and patterns that aren't serving us. And it's simply a moment-by-moment choice. It's nothing more than that. When you start to feel things kind of spinning out of control, or you're not feeling very good, you're just feeling sort of like anxious or restless, take that moment to recenter yourself. Observe what's happening. Tune into what you need in that moment. It might be a quick break. It might be a drink of water because you haven't hydrated. It might be switching to another task and giving yourself a break from trying to solve that one particular problem. Pay attention to your own needs instead of just trying to push through and sticking to the regular way that you've always done things. When you're more in tune with this, then you're able to return to your essential self more quickly. That's that natural state that you want to spend as much time as possible in. You won't be able to do it all the time because, we live in a pretty challenging world. But you want to spend as much time in that natural state as possible, where you're able to respond to the things around you from an active rather than reactive place. And the really beautiful thing about learning to treat yourself with this much compassion and kindness and acceptance is that it helps you treat other people in that way too. As you practice releasing yourself from judgment, you can do the same thing for the people around you. So take your students, for example. At their core, they have beautiful souls and kind hearts. Those are their essential selves, just like it's your essential self. So what's happening to pull them out of that state? What have they experienced? What are they going through in this moment that's pulling them away from that? How can you meet them with understanding so that they too can become more mindful of their habits and their triggers and their patterns and all of these things that aren't really them, aren't really serving them well? Releasing yourself and your students, your colleagues, your family members, your partner, anyone in your life, releasing all of these people from judgment is a practice. It does take some time. Like, we call it a practice because you have to do it more than one time. But it will change your life. At least I can say it's changed mine the more that I focused on this and the more I have just tuned into this and the power of it in my own life. It's a sort of small mindset shift, but it ripples out into every aspect of life. There's a really big difference in the way that it feels when you see yourself as inherently flawed and in need of constant fixing and improvement, and the way that it feels when you choose to see your essential self or the divine part of you inside as perfect, as trustworthy, as always knowing exactly how to respond and act. So you don't have to be constantly rushing ahead, planning, trying to fix things, trying to make something better, trusting that inside you know exactly what to do if you can just tap into that part of you. Growing as a person then becomes an act of returning to yourself and embracing who you really are instead of trying to constantly change or improve yourself. And that's what I mean when I say that it's small but powerful. You're not changing, you're returning to yourself. Now, whether all of this resonates with you, I don't know. You might think that some of this is pretty out there and it just doesn't make sense to you at all. That's okay. Take the parts of this message that serve you well and let go of the rest. Maybe it's not all for you. It's fine. But my hope for you in general for 2019 is that this would be a time of less effort, less striving, less doing, and more being. And that requires a new way of thinking and some new habits and some new patterns. But each day that you bring your awareness to that goal or that practice, the more it becomes a reality in your life. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. Want more than just a weekly podcast episode from me? I'd love to also send you a weekly message of encouragement via email. I'll reach out each Sunday evening with a short message that's designed to help you feel more prepared and inspired and motivated for the week ahead. It's not a newsletter or a bunch of announcements. This goes out to over 85,000 educators. So I put just as much thought into crafting this weekly written message to my email list as I do into crafting my podcast episodes. And it's entirely unique content that you won't find anywhere else online. Just go to thecornerstoneforteachers.com/subscribe and you can sign up. That's thecornerstoneforteachers.com/subscribe.